is you. There's more for you in Indiana. There's a place in the Midwest, 50 miles southeast of Chicago, nestled near the coast of Lake Michigan. It's a place driven by what's coming next, a place where industry is the lifeblood of its community, and its pulse is gritted with sand and steel, fire and smoke. It's a city building its future together, one business, one family, and one home at a time. This is a place for makers, doers, and dreamers. It's where the global marketplace meets hometown values, where Americana isn't just a tradition, it's a way of life. Here, your experience makes the difference. With access to railroads, major waterways, and 8 different highways, this is a place in motion, sending goods, services, and ideas not just across the state, but across the world. And when the work ends, the day's just beginning, with beaches like West Beach in the Indiana Dunes National Park, exciting hiking and biking trails like the Diana of the Dunes Dare or the BMX track, and local treasures and exciting festivals, you'll know you're in more than just a bedroom community. From veterans of foreign wars to hometown heroes, our diversity is our strength, and we forge our future with the same flame as our steel. Oh, there's a place in the Midwest, and it's calling you home. The best part of Portage is what's next. The best part of Portage is you. There's more for you in Indiana. There's a place in the Midwest, 50 miles southeast of Chicago, nestled near the coast of Lake Michigan. It's a place driven by what's coming next, a place where industry is the lifeblood of its community, and its pulse is gritted with sand and steel, fire and smoke. It's a city building its future together, one business, one family.
I'd like to call to order the City of Portage Planning Commission meeting for Monday, January 6th. If you would stand and say the pledge. Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Victor Mendoza, Melissa Weidenbach, Brent Wright,
Here.
Carissa Childers, Sam LeBoy,
Here.
Deb Ekdahl, Denise Little,
Here.
Victoria Vasquez,
Here.
Alonzo Garcia.
Here.
If everybody's had an opportunity to look at the minutes, if there are no changes or corrections, or additions, I'm sorry, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Cherry, any report from staff?
No reports from staff. The next items, we don't have a full chamber tonight, so do we make a motion to table that?
For the election. May I have a motion to table?
I'll make a motion that we table the elections.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Brent Wright,
Yes.
Sam LeBoy,
Yes.
Deb Ekdahl,
Yes.
Denise Little,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Alonzo Garcia.
Yes.
Did we want to move up new business and before old business?
First off, we need to officially table the P-02-24 to I would recommend making a motion to table to date certain of February 3rd. February 3rd.
May I have a motion to table?
I make a motion to table PD-02-24 to the February 3rd meeting.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Brent Wright,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
Deb Ekdahl, Denise Little,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Alonso Garcia.
Yes.
What I would like to do is call new business SPO 5-24.
SP-05-24, Core Portage LLC, 10 Parkway North, Suite 120, Deerfield, Illinois, seeking a site plan approval to construct a 2,200 square foot Starbucks coffee shop at 6051 Central Avenue.
Evening.
Good evening.
If you could introduce yourself
Yes.
and then go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, my name is Adam Bell with Core Acquisitions, the project developer. Okay, and what we are proposing and have taken through the previous DRC and BZA is a freestanding Starbucks at 6051 to 6071 Central Avenue. We've been working pretty tirelessly with staff to go through all outstanding comments, which I believe we now have staff's recommended approval to proceed. So our intent, given approval here tonight, would be to finalize closing on the property in the next 30 to 45 days and commencing construction in February.
And just in your presentation, for people in the audience that does not have your application, can you kind of explain your building
Yes.
and what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So we are proposing a freestanding 2,240 square foot Starbucks with 15 stacks, 31 parks. This would be to take the existing vacant land piece immediately south of City Hall here and building a first-class Starbucks restaurant per their prototypical plans. I think we're providing 15 stacks, which, operates under today's kind of high-density drive-through demands that a lot of these fast food restaurants and QSRs are looking for these days. We provide, I believe, 3 set pickup locations for the customers for online orders and, 30 parking spots, but it's a fairly prototypical Starbucks that you'd see.
Did you happen to bring a rendering?
I do have plans. If I know, Dina, you maybe had mentioned that they were going to be presented, but I have a flash drive with
I mean,
plans
we
you can
have
show.
like your site plan.
Yeah, I have elevations and everything
Oh,
as well.
perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they're on a flash drive if you want me to pull them up, but I have them with me here as well.
Dina, do you need to help him?
But if you want them, I have the hard copy here, and I can provide you a flash drive. Elevations. I have my computer.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. It's locked, you're not working? No, it's Surface, so USB-C port on the side here. Yeah. Yep, no, that's right here, HDMI. And I don't have a converter. Yeah, you should be able to, if you like download the PDF and then you can just Control Shift plus it.
Sorry about this. I'm sorry about this. I am so sorry. I had questions
Yeah, no, of course.
of, hoping for like a rendering that normal people can understand.
Sure, I can pull, so this is.
A prototype?
Yeah, this is a little bit site-specific, just
Okay.
due to like some materials, but
Yeah.
if you want, I can send them over like an actual like 3D rendering, but for the submittals that were required under like the village board, we didn't have to prepare
Exactly.
like a full, like fledged rendering.
Yeah.
It's more just the elevations outlining the material specs, heights, dimensions, et cetera.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is going to be basically gray, all the way up to above the windows, correct?
That's right.
And then that darker, similar to a lot of your other Starbucks, kind of that taupe, that dark taupe.
Yeah,
top.
for the, for EFS, and then there's also some like kind of wood material.
Oh, wood grain?
Yeah.
Okay, kind of like when we looked at it in the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I thank you for going to all that trouble. I apologize for that. Are you complete with your presentation?
I mean, I think it's just, more so outlining that this is, a standard prototypical Starbucks where we're providing, the necessary parks per code. We're providing safe access with access off of both Lois and Irving Street. And we've, designed this within ordinance and have kind of achieved the necessary variances that were required in order to obtain approval here at the village board. So.
Staff has no outstanding issues. Remediation is handled
Okay.
as well on the other issue, so.
Okay. And this is not a public hearing. I will now open to questions from the commission.
A question. We still have outstanding for variances regarding stormboard,
There's
correct?
one more outstanding variance for stormwater, and I believe that's on the 9th. We had originally when we originally brought the plan forth, it was understood that we were actually reducing the amount of impervious area. However, based off of Great Lakes responses, they are requiring us to increase our stormwater capacity due to downstream constraints. So we've made some modifications on the southwest portion of the site to include a rain garden. And that has been adjusted for and provided to Great Lakes. I believe we're under a variance on Thursday.
I believe it's 2 variances
2 variances, okay.
for the allowable release rate as well as the general basin requirements.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So site plan approval was, or we're going to vote on today, it would have to be contingent upon those 2 variances as well.
And I believe that was noted under staff's report.
That's it for me.
Any other questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve, subject to the 2 pending variances needed for the stormwater.
Second.
Is that motion okay, or do we need to be more specific? Okay. Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Brent Wright,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
Deb Ekdahl,
Yes.
Denise Little,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Alonso Garcia.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Looking forward to building here.
Could you call our second order of old business?
Second order of business, I believe we're combining, because of the process, Z-05-24, Z-06-24, PD-02-24. 0524 Lennar Homes of Indiana Incorporated, care of Todd Leith, Leith Law, LLC, 2700 Valparaiso Street, number 2412, Valparaiso, Indiana, requesting a change of zoning from R2, low density, to R3, medium density residential for Swanson Trails planned development consisting of 80 plus or minus acres located along the northwest corner of County Road 700 North and along the west side of Swanson Road. The next one, I don't need to go through the description again, but we are seeking a zoning change from R3 to PD R3. So that's the second step. The third is for Lennar Homes seeking a favorable recommendation to City Council for the Swanson Trails Preliminary Development Plan. So it's a 3-stage process. We have to, the way the code is written, I think you're all familiar with that, so.
Good evening.
Good evening. Give us a moment, please. I don't think I'm as young as Mr. Cherry, so I don't think I'm as young as you are. There we go. I'm not sure what you just did. I should have watched.
You got an IT guy.
Yeah, exactly. Thank goodness. Good evening. My name is Todd Leith. I'm an attorney, and I'm representing the petitioner in these three cases that are all about the same piece of property. And I am joined at the table here by Luke Fricke. Todd Clevin is in the back. Both of them are with Lennar Homes. Mike Moore from Manhard Consulting is the project engineer. He joins us. He's out in the audience as well. And you're going to hear from Rick Olson, who is the land planner for this project. I'm going to ask him to step forward during my presentation on this project. The property, we'll start identifying that, is in the northwest corner of County Road 700 North, which forms the southern boundary of the property, and Swanson Road forms the eastern boundary of the property. And overall, it's highlighted in this red box. You can see, and I can perhaps, where's my monitor? Oops. All right, well, we're not going to do that, but, oh, here we go. Why can't I get that here? You can see, I'll just use my pointer here, the old-fashioned way. I was trying to get the laser up. The cursor here, there's a large stand of trees. We've been talking through the process of this review about those trees, and the neighbors are concerned about preserving those as best we can, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that. Today it's zoned R2, low-density residential on your official zoning map. And so we're doing a stair step. As we looked at the agenda, there's three cases, and ultimately we're trying to get to a planned unit development that allows us some flexibility to create lots, create open space, some of the things that you're going to see in our concept plan for this rezoning ultimately to this planned unit development, or PD, as your ordinance calls it. In order to get there, we have to rezone from our R2 to R3, then R3 to PD R3, and then the development ordinance or the development plan, which is part of that process. So kind of a three stair step, as I've called it, rezoning to get to that ultimate result. So we start out with the end, and the end is an ordinance that has been drafted, reviewed by staff, and is what is being presented to you for a recommendation to City Council. This preliminary development plan incorporates a concept plan. It's not an engineered final, 65.07 feet, but it's 65 feet. It's conceptually what we would like to do. The number of lots will not change. It's locked in the verbiage. All of the uses are locked in the verbiage. All of the commitments that we say we're going to do tonight on this PowerPoint are locked into this ordinance. So this ordinance is very important in the ultimate result that we're driving at, and that's the planned unit development. And it has, under your ordinance, certain things that are required. It introduces the property, just as I did tonight. It talks about the district and what we're trying to accomplish. It establishes the land uses that are allowed in this property. And it provides for certain development guidelines and standards. And then lastly, the approval process. How do we approve it? How do we amend it? And how do we appeal anything that might come from it, just like an ordinance would? This is the concept plan. We are showing 229 lots, but we're also showing 26.6 acres of open space. I didn't even touch my computer.
Is Is that yours or ours?
I didn't even touch it. No signal. Oh, there he is. Magic touch.
Thank you.
Maybe I should talk faster. The concept plan is attached to the written verbiage. And Mr. Olson is going to talk about this plan because he's the architect, if you will, of this plan. He's the one who's created it. He didn't make it up out of thin air. He looked at where the water would ultimately go when it's engineered, and that's why Mr. Moore is here, to talk about any details. But Mr. Moore's fingerprints aren't on this, are on this, but he hasn't engineered this to make it a subdivision plat. So we know that the water is ultimately going to be on the west side, and that's where we're showing the detention ponds. We have open space and a trail system that's there, but also at the top, the left side is north. The property's long north to south, so in order to orient it on a page, we had to turn. So north is on the left side. On the east side, which is the top of this page, you can see that stand of trees I referred to in the aerial picture. And we've done, I think, a very good job of preserving that. Mr. Olson's going to talk in greater detail. Your ordinance requires that we kind of tell you what's around the property, and that's in this ordinance to the north of us. We don't go all the way north to Highway 6. We stop short of that, but that property, it appears as though that might all be one property, but we fall short of that. So the northern neighboring property continues to be farmland. To the south is County Road 700 North. West is a series of parcels. It has a county road designation of 712, and we have the back side of those parcels facing us. There's larger home sites there. And then on the east side is Swanson Road, and of course on that side of the road is Arvilla Acres and Brookview, some of the most concerned neighbors in that area. The second part of the PUD ordinance talks about property conditions, zoning, description of the property, and phasing. And I want to focus on the project description. So of that concept plan, the north part of that has 150 lots, and those are 50-foot wide lots or potentially greater than that. And as I indicated, throughout the entire development, there's 229 lots. Again, Mr. Olson's going to go through the concept plan perhaps in a little more detail. On the south, we have larger lots, 63-foot wide or greater, and those are 79 lots out of the 229. Throughout the entire development, there are a number of trails in addition to your statutory or required sidewalks. And we also have a park in the corner of where the tree preservation is, and that park will have a fitness court within that. The PUD ordinance also requires that we say what we're going to do, and we have two types of lots, as I described. We have the park and walking trails, and we have a permitted uses section. And as you can see, it's the park, it's single-family homes, home occupations, and a child care home. Those are things that are all allowed in the R2 district today. We have a developmental standards table, just like you would in your ordinance. And you can see we have the 63 and 50-foot wide lots, the north and south lots. We have setbacks listed. We have minimum floor area, which exceeds your ordinance today. And then lastly, we have the section that talks about how we get it approved with subdivision plats, which, because this is a PUD, they're called development plans, though nomenclature's a little clunky. If we want to amend the concept plan, what the process is there, whether it's a major amendment or a minor amendment, and an appeal process. So we've been working at this, and as you well know, we were at your December meeting for our public hearing, and at that time, we were asked to defer. And we retired up to the mayor's office, some of the folks that were here for that meeting, and we had a little discussion. But I didn't have my PowerPoint with me. It was very impromptu. And we talked a little bit at that time. But the mayor invited us to have a more formal presentation, which we did a week ago on December 30th. And we sent out notification to the folks that came on December 2nd to come back to City Hall, to this very room, and I showed them essentially the same PowerPoint that you're seeing tonight. And we talked about the case. So we've had these interactions, meetings with some of the folks. Primarily they're from Avila Acres in Brookview. And so what we learned is some takeaways that I want to make clear, and that is all of these homes are single-family homes. There are no duplexes. There are no duplexes. There are no duplexes. There's no multifamily. These are single-family detached homes. There's also some misconception as to what a PUD is. A PUD can be virtually anything that I can write on paper and present, and if the city council approves it, it becomes an ordinance. So we could put multifamily apartments and an industrial smokestack business on this property, and if the city council makes it a PUD, it's a PUD. But that's not what we're presenting. We're not presenting anything but 229 single lots for single-family homes. Those homes are much narrower than your ordinance allows. Your ordinance requires, if it were R2, to be 80-foot wide lots. But we're proposing 50 and 63-foot wide lots. But the trade-off is 26 acres of open space. Why do we want to do 50 and 63-foot wide lots? Lennar Homes is one of the largest home builders in the nation. They know what they're doing. They know what their customers want. And their customers want lower maintenance homes. They don't want a third of an acre, a quarter of an acre. They want smaller homes, but they want the amenities. They want that park. They want those open spaces. They want those walking trails. Those are the things that buyers, according to Lennar, want. And so what we can do is within our community, build that community. And that is smaller homes, nice homes, but provide the amenities that the home buyers want. And outside of the four corners of Swanson Trails in this property, everybody's going to see the same thing that they would see elsewhere, except it's going to be much greener because of the tree preservation. What you're seeing in this ordinance and that concept plan, it didn't start that way. We've had now 6 previous iterations. So we've been working with staff. The first one was in March. Then we went a long way, but it was August, September, October, November, December. Every month it changed because staff wanted something different, because we had to tweak something. So we've done quite a bit of study in order to get here tonight. And that last change came after December 2nd. And that's when we preserved more trees. And again, Mr. Olson's going to do that. So this is that plan before, and now you can see the area in red that I've highlighted was essentially a road continuing out to Swanson and lined up with Holmes Avenue on the other side. So we had an additional entrance, but we had additional lots on either side, and that required the loss of the trees that are in that shaded red area. We took that out in order to, in response to what we heard in the mayor's office, and later on December 30th, We showed them this new plan, and we've preserved considerably more of the trees. That tree preservation area is significantly larger. And I'm going to ask Rich now to come forward and talk a little bit more about how he came up with this concept plan.
Good evening. My name is Rich Olson. I'm with Gary R. Weber Associates. We're landscape architects and land planners out of Wheaton, Illinois. Todd's gone through a pretty comprehensive discussion on the plan, so I will try and drill into some of the details, talk a little bit about some of the planning factors that helped us prepare this plan, and he touched base on some of that, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the amenities that we're developing on the site. I think this is a pretty exciting plan because of the PUD process that you have. It does allow us to work with the land and try and turn some of the things that would be more of a traditional layout, which would destroy more trees, into what you see today, which is a plan that preserves quite a bit of open space, quite a bit of trees, and as well as creating some really nice amenities for the residents. Some of the planning factors that we look at are things like access to the site from both the pedestrian and then the vehicular access. We look at the topography, and we look at the natural resources of the site. And this site has all of those things. It has really good access. It has logical ties across the street to the existing neighborhood. This is a great transitional site that would then transition stuff to the west. And then, of course, it has natural resources. It has both wetlands and trees on it. And we've spent a good amount of time going out inventorying the trees and looking at the site with both of our natural resource team that's been looking at this site. So I'm pretty familiar with this site and what you've got. The tree stand itself is a mixed bag. It's got it's an evenly mix of both what they call higher quality trees, as well as some less higher quality trees and more invasive things. But they're spread out throughout the site. The other thing within that larger that's up on the screen, pretty much the hatched area and the green area that you see is where the trees are. And the hatched area represents where we're developing lots, and the green area is where we're preserving the lots for you. And what that amounts to is currently where we're at today is about 50% of the current tree stand is being preserved, which is a significant amount from where we started, and then even where we made another modification that Todd talked about to not push through another connection to the east out to Swanson Trail, which is nice. And then the other two reasons why I think it makes sense where we've got the tree preservation is the pedestrian view from Swanson. Essentially, that's not going to change. There's a small street that we're tying into, but that frontage along Swanson Trails is predominantly preserved, so which is nice because you're going to drive up and down Swanson Trails and you'll see pretty much what's there today. And then we're also providing landscape buffers along Swanson Trails that we will be landscaping with evergreen trees and shade trees that will help to filter the views into the existing homes, which won't face onto Swanson. They'll be backing up to Swanson or siding up to Swanson. But this plan here, I think, is really good from the preservation of that view corridor along Swanson Trails, and within that, in the middle of that green area, we put a note that says natural area. There's a wetland there, and that wetland is the best quality wetland on the site, and we're preserving most of the wetlands on the site with the exception of a couple on the west side where our detention area is. So that's another reason why that's a good logical spot to save the trees in that spot. The other thing that we've accomplished is there's an existing trail system that comes along 700 North. We're continuing that trail system along there, going up Swanson Trails, and you can kind of see how we dive it in, and we're going to weave it through the wooded area. And that connection is going to come out to a central park that you see there that will have a bunch of amenities included, and I'll talk about that in a second. But certainly this plan, if you go back, you'll see the overall. You go back one. So essentially you've got the northern pod, which is to the left, and you got the southern pod, which is to the right or to the south. And then you've got the preservation of the trees area, sort of central east. And then you've got a trail system that comes right down through, and that park serves as a really nice hub in the center of that development, so that everybody from the south or from the north can, of course, access it. And that was strategically located there. And then we've also created a path that extends through the detention area to the north, so that people on the north side can get on a trail and come down through and access that park as a nice amenity. And overall, I think the idea here is that we've got a creative site plan that's a master plan that gives some amenities, preserves a lot of trees, and gives a real nice overview of what we're proposing from a master plan concept level. This is a detail of the park, which, of course, it's in concept level, but there's some important things that we definitely are going to want to provide, one of which is a fitness court area, which I believe that is something that we've been requested to put in there, and I think it's a good idea to have as part of a park. We don't generally do that, but it's something that we're definitely looking to do for the residents. There would also be a tot lot area there for all age groups to be able to go out and recreate. There would definitely be some open play areas for throwing the Frisbee around. And then not more importantly, but as importantly, that is also a hub or a trailhead spot for you to get on the trail and access that really nice amenity of the trees that we're going to be preserving in its entire, about 50% of the trees. I think, is that the end of the?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I just want to sum it up. Appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. We really think this is a great opportunity for us. We really think this is a nice design, a concept that allows us to do this from the plan unit development, and that's why that's important here. It gives us the flexibility to do that. It doesn't take away any flexibility or anything from your standpoint. Matter of fact, it gives you a lot of power to help move this forward and say, hey, we'd like to see this, or we'd like to see that. But we certainly would like to move forward with this one, and look forward to your comments. Thanks.
Thank you. I said earlier at the citizen meeting that I really appreciate, as a zoning lawyer, real estate lawyer, having projects that have started with a land planner, because I think they are communities and not just subdivisions. It's not cookie cutter, it's not a grid pattern. This is a well thought out development. It incorporates some of what's going to have to come when we do the final development plan, which is the subdivision plat. That's when the engineering gets drilled into. And we'll be working with Great Lakes to, hopefully find the right details. If that means that our land plan didn't incorporate or consider something that is discovered, then 229 lots turns into 228 or 226. But it never goes to 230 or more. It can only be 229 or less. And we think we've accommodated everything. We know where the wetlands are. We've studied that. As I indicated, there's engineering fingerprints on the concept plan, but that's the next step. The concept is that, and I think it creates a dynamic community rather than just a simple subdivision. So your ordinance, I mentioned 80-foot wide lots under the R2 classification requires 8,400 square foot lots and 80-foot wide lot width. In comparison, if we were to develop it without a PUD and just simply as an R2, and I want to be perfectly clear, we're not trying to threaten anyone. Lennar wouldn't do this. They would walk and move on if we are unsuccessful. But under the R2 classification, there's a rule of thumb that I learned long ago from my developer clients that about 75% of your acreage is lots, and the other 25% is roads and detention ponds. Open space if you choose. But 75% rule of thumb is what you have in lots. So if you take the acreage of this parcel, take out 25% of it, and then multiply, divide that by the 8,400 square foot lots, you would come up with 313 lots that you could have in round numbers. It may be 300, it may be 280. My guess is it's pretty close to that 313. That's the number of lots that you could get with a cookie cutter, minimal detention, but meet your ordinance, rights of way, access, all of those things would be provided for and meet your code. And we would have approximately 313 lots. We're not doing that. We're creating a community with plenty of open space. Our lot sizes go down, in some cases, 50-foot wide lots. But what we get is in my opinion, better result because we're preserving the trees, because we're creating that community that I have been discussing. So when you talk about comparisons of density, our density over the 80 acres is 2.84 lots per acre. Our Villa acres across the street, and I got these numbers from their Platza subdivision and from GIS. So I'm not going to guarantee that these are engineered, guaranteed, stamped, and sealed, but this is what I came up with. Their acreage lots per acre, 2.85, and Brookview is 2.89. We are all right there, very similar. You don't find in those other communities the open space, 1.6 acres in each. The amenities, they have detention only. I think Brookview may have a small park, a half a lot, it looks like. But Swanson Trails has the amenities that we showed. Tree preservation, open space, trails, as well as detention. So that's Brookview and our Villa Acres aerial. And if you put them side by side with Swanson Road in the middle, there's about 1,900 feet of, that's not true. We have a significant frontage. The numbers are, that number was from Monday's hearing at a different community. We have a significant frontage along Swanson Road. A third of that is trees, and nearly all of that is preserved. The 50% that we lose are on the interior. So from Swanson Road and looking across the street from our Villa and Brookview, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see virtually all of those trees. Only where we have the connection with Buttercup are we losing a little bit of the trees that are along Swanson Road. Other than that, the entire length of the existing trees visible on Swanson will stay. Again, I think that we would be talking about a much longer development with a cookie cutter subdivision. Lennar is going to go in, they'll move quickly, they know how to market, they know how to build, they'll be in and out much faster. You're going to have bigger lots, wider lots, but more lots. And all of those things don't result in what we are trying to accomplish with our development. I'm going to let Luke kind of discuss some of the homes that are proposed. Lennar has a palette, if you will, of many different home options. And for this development, they've selected 2 different series.
Correct. So when I say products, the product being the home that we're building, and we selected 2 product lineups, and that is one that we call the Horizon and another one called the Core Series. Now, the product fits differently on the different size lots to the north. So just as a 30,000 foot view, and Todd can keep flipping through these to get the square footages, they'll have a certain brick minimum. And then the 50-foot lots, which is the Core Series, they'll be about an 1,800 square foot average. and selling at about 350,000 average. And the Horizon plans on the 63-foot lots will have an average square foot of 2,300 and an average sale price of 420,000. They'll have a minimum brick percentage. They all kind of meet the range when we shop the area for the average sale prices in Portage. They're all within a certain percentage of that, and we just think it's a great fit.
We're often asked, are these targeted for young families, senior citizens, empty nesters, as we call them? Empty nesters in the housing market today are on both ends of the spectrum. It's the young families before they have kids. My kids were no different than the current group, and that is they waited a number of years before they had kids. So that group in the marketplace is also called empty nesters, when we always think of empty nesters as being the seniors after the kids have moved out. So we have young professionals, active adults. This is a development and a housing style that's targeted for everyone. So a true community. So that's our presentation to you. We look forward to answering your questions and those that come from the hearing and the citizens tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Oh, and before we get started with that, if anybody feels uncomfortable coming up and speaking in public, you could submit something in writing, and we would read that aloud and make sure that that went into our minutes. We do have, it looks like, quite a few people that are going to get up and speak. We don't want everybody saying completely the same thing over and over again. So you can say, I agree with this, and then give what other information that you have personally. So we'll go ahead and open now.
Good evening, Council. Good citizen, Portage, Indiana. I'm honored to be here today to share my valuable feedback and insight as a member of the public. You know, I really, let me shout out Todd Heath. You're Mr. Heath? Leith, excuse me. Yeah, great presentation. And what I liked, if you notice, the very first thing, if anybody remembers, the very first thing that Mr. Leith said, he said, hold on, I need a minute. He didn't ask, he told you. And in order to tell you, you have to know, okay? And I say that, so this is a person that, a leader that knows what he needs. He's competent. He's obviously very experienced and very good at what he does. That's a small thing you might not have, you know, or maybe you did notice that. But this is the type of leadership, these are the type of people that we want behind projects that are going to represent our city of Portage, Indiana, people that are of the highest talent, the highest, you know, capability. So that was the very first thing that, you know, stuck out to me. You know, I'm all for this subdivision. This is beautiful. We need more of these. You know, we want Portage to continue to grow and to continue to evolve. Why would we not want this, you know, couple hundred units of, you know, new development that can attract, you know, new families and new tenants? Why would we not want that? I'm presuming we may hear some, because a lot of times here at the meetings we do hear concerns about protecting, you know, the land. Maybe there won't be people here tonight to speak about, you know, anytime you build something, obviously you're going to, you know, take down trees. So I mean, you know, either we're not going to build anything or we're going to, you know, take down some trees. And, you know, so if we are going to build and grow and develop and evolve, you know, trees are, you know, going to come down. And, you know, you heard, you know, within this presentation, you know, keeping a level of nature and keeping, you know, I think he even, you know, discussed and told you why he's keeping a little bit larger of a segment. So those are positive things. And, you know, these are the type of developments that are going to attract more people to this city. Furthermore, understand the way I look at things is that the better the presentation you get, that's more respect that you're being given, okay? So when I say better presentation, you're talking about people that take the time to put together, video slides, people that have handouts, people that are sharp. And then you look back here, you've got, this is a sharp gentleman with the tan sweater. That's a sharp jacket. They've got name tags. They came and said, you know what, I also heard that we've done multiple meetings. So, understand that's a sign of respect and saying, you know what, we're going to bring our best, we're going to bring our all to you. And again, to me, the type of organization, individual, or group that's going to do that, those are the types of individuals, organizations, or groups that we want leading the development for, what is Portage going to be tomorrow. So that's my comments for this. I do want to just, go back. I know with the first presentation for Starbucks, it was mentioned that that was not the public hearing, but I want to bring to your attention that according to the agenda that you have out, it is listed under public hearing, even though I know you verbally said that it wasn't. According to the agenda, it was. So I don't know if there may be members of the public that should have had the ability to offer you their valuable insight. I know our attorney can certainly speak to that. I don't know if there's something that maybe needs to be cleared up with that, but, according to the agenda, and the meeting is listed, with the public meetings on the site, but, clearly old business is the public hearing, and PO 224 was the first item listed under old business. So I just wanted to bring that, to your attention. So if there's anything that needs to be maybe, to clear up that inconsistency, I wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner?
I'm going to try to do something I'm not really known for, and that's trying to be brief. We'll see how I do. I just want to speak to something to be said about this process, and I think it speaks to the new way that we've been doing things here in the city of Portage. Because as noted, this was originally scheduled to come before you guys on December 2nd. It was tabled or put forward to now, and we had about 30 people who came here. I don't know for sure if all 30 of them were coming to speak against it, but in my experience, when people are taking time on a Monday at 6:30 to come and speak at a public meeting, they're more likely leaning towards against than for, or at the very least, they have concerns. Sensing the frustration in the room, I invited everybody who was there to come and speak or listen about this proposal to come up to my office. It did make the paper. I didn't know one of them was a reporter until he got up there and took a picture. And it was something out of a movie because I did my best to explain how zoning works, how the process works, as I've done online and as I've done in person. And I really do remember it happening something like this, where someone asked a question that unfortunately I didn't have the answer to. I was about to say well, I'm going to have to come back to you with that to get that info. But then Mr. Leith showed up at my door. He followed us up and joined in the meeting, and we ended up giving a co-presentation on what we could, which is a lot about how zoning works and how this procedure goes. To summarize that meeting, there were 3 essentially different types of people present at the meeting upstairs in my office. One was a group of people who don't want any homes built on this land. Then there were people who were okay with homes being built on this land, but they wanted to make sure that they were of the same value, quality as the homes in their neighborhood across the street in Arvilla Acres or in Brookview. And then the third group of people were people who were concerned about the trees and the woods. Now, you can be a member of at least 2 of those groups together, maybe in a way all 3. But I say that because at the end of the meeting, there was a very, very young man, very small guy, who's maybe not that small, sorry, but who said, did it? He asked me, did we do it? Did we save the woods? And as a mayor and as an adult, I had to kind of say, well, we're going to see how it turns out. But the challenge is knowing what a lot of you guys already know and what I think the public has come to learn. When land is zoned a certain way, a developer can buy it and build it according to its zoning. A lot of undeveloped land in our city is zoned R1, which, say what you will, it gives the city council a lot of control or leverage, if you will, about what it becomes afterwards. But R2, which is what the land already is the same zoning of a neighborhood such as Arvilla or Brookview across the street or Austin Hills or Capitol Estates. The list goes on. I appreciate Mr. Leith's point that there's no threat here from Lennar. If this PUD doesn't go through, they're going to go and seek another site for a different community to build. But we know the market in Northwest Indiana. Someone is going to buy this land, and it's going to be someone who will have the ability to say, I'm going to build an R2 neighborhood to what the code allows me to build, and there's really nothing we can do to stop it. I've been in your shoes. I was in your shoes for 6 years. Sometimes you legally have to vote for something because it meets code, and you have to explain to people who don't like it, I'm so sorry. It's like, in a way, it's like being a judge. It doesn't matter what you think of the law. You got to go by what someone is allowed legally to do. But working backwards from the trees to the quality to just the homes, period, I will say that they took it to heart that there was a strong contingency in the area that wanted to save the trees. And it's funny for me because 2 years ago I was criticized for caring too much about trees, and here I am not proving that assertion wrong. They went and found a way to preserve a great deal of the woods in a way that visually captures what's already there from the front end. No offense to anybody, but I don't think anyone who likes that woods necessarily crosses the street and walks within the woods. Although now there is going to be a trail system proposed for this, so you actually could. Going back to people who are concerned about the quality and value of the homes, I think they've demonstrated the quality and value of the homes that they're going to build and their ability to do so. And then that gets us to that last camp that I mentioned first, which is people who don't want to see any homes. Well, that goes back to how the law works. We can't stop a developer from building homes here. But what the city has reasonable ability to do is mitigate, if you will, or make sure that what's built is a community that we want to see. In a lot of cases, except this one. And what's amazing about this one is in this one, the developer came anyway and said, we want to do something differently, so you need to work with the city to come up with a better plan. I can generally say that this is a level of work that I did not see most of the time while I was on Plan Commission, DRC, or BZA. The level of attention that was given to resident input, city concern. I'm not saying everything is perfect. I'm not saying there aren't disagreements or things like this, but the level of work that was put in by the city and the developer to get to this proposal is something that should be noted, the attention to detail and the commitment to quality in the city that went into it. Couple things I just wanted to say because I'm sure that they will come up potentially in some resident questions. Every time we have a meeting like this, there's a question brought up about the school system and can the school system handle a neighborhood of this sort. Simply put, yes. It's hard to put an exact number on what a capacity is for a school system. But in Portage, it's roughly 9,300 schools, and I believe Mr. Leith has the exact number. I think is it 6,588?
Right on the number.
I apologize. I will happily talk to you, but I got to follow the rules too, because I'm speaking as a citizen right now. It's not the mayor's portion. Don't you worry at all. Believe me, I appreciate the friendliness, what have you.
What I do is take down everybody's questions and make sure that we have an answer for each individual one.
The other important thing to understand is that Indiana schools are primarily funded by head count, whereas cities are primarily funded by property tax. So it sometimes creates an odd relationship between a city that's very concerned about the number of people you got to take care of versus the school system, which generally is encouraging people to come in, especially if they have families. So that's one piece that I'm sure will come up, and happy to elaborate so much as I can. Second thing I know is going to come up potentially is concerns about traffic. Traffic is definitely something that's going to have to be addressed anytime a development comes in. That is more so on the city side, outside the neighborhood, than the developer itself. I've been there kicking that thing, sorry. But I've hit my foot really bad on that. Sorry, I hope you're feeling okay. So simply put, the traffic concerns are worth talking about, but that's more on us about how we figure that out on the city government side rather than from the development itself. That's not like an order, it's just to understand whose responsibility is which when it comes to the need to slow down and manage traffic on Swanson Road. I believe that's all I can say in the interest of transparency, and just explain that it's been quite a process, and when I came in as mayor, I think it was very known that I came in very, very critical of residential growth and with a determination to not just say yes to everything. We've had some developers who I told them point blank what we expect to see in Portage, and some of them just walk away. So when a developer doesn't walk away and they work with the city, I do think it's worth noting, especially in a meeting like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner?
My name is Carl Talon. I'm 53 years old, so I just want to give you a little background so you know the weight behind what I'm trying to tell you guys. I had my real estate license at 21 years old. I worked for Century 21 Remax. I've also been a real estate investor for 30 years, a small business owner. And so what I want to say about this subdivision is I've been working with these builders, not this builders, but this subdivision, this area trying to be built in 2006. Every time I've been here, I've been opposed to it, but not tonight. This builder has made so many modifications, and in my professional opinion, this is a good thing for Portage. This is a good thing for the residents of Arvilla Acres. This is probably the best that I've seen that any builder is going to want to build on this property. So I think that it's a good deal, and I definitely think that we should approve it. It's just a good thing for Portage, and it's also going to help increase property values of the surrounding area, and it's going to meet the goals that I've always had, and I'm sure Portage has always had, is you always want to build equal or better. And I actually think that this will actually make the area better. So I'm definitely for this subdivision being built. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Sir? The gentleman who just spoke? The gentleman in the green. Go ahead, we're good.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to take the opportunity really quick just to tell a quick story. I'm Todd Clevin, the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Lennar. This is our third community within your municipality. And when I stood in front of you 4 years ago getting our first community approved, it was my goal to not be our first nor our last, nor will this one be our last. And with the conversations of Lennar would walk from this, that's not our intent. It's very portrayed, we want to bring a community to fit the existing attributes of the property, but we want to make it work, and that's exactly what we've done over the last 6 to 8 months working with your staff. So I just wanted to commend your staff, your board, yourself, the mayor, and the story I wanted to share with you. I think we did about 85,000 homes this year nationwide. Our division alone did about 1,780. It was one Friday afternoon. Promised my kids I'd go down and swim with them at the pool. And I didn't have the opportunity to meet the mayor yet, but I got a phone call. And I almost didn't take it because I promised my kids I'd go swimming with them. And the phone call I got was from another VP. And he said, "Todd, do you know the mayor of Portage?" I said, "No, I haven't met him yet. I know there's an administration change." He said, "Well, we have an issue in one of our communities." That was about 4 o'clock on a Friday. And we pulled the entire team together. And I think for the next 5 days, we met with the mayor. He brought the citizens in. The reason I share this with you, nobody's perfect. Everybody has concerns. It's the reason we have a customer care warranty department, but I just want to share with you what Lennar did on a Friday, and we're still working through those. We actually had a meeting today. So I just want to let you know that, even though we're a builder, a developer, we try not to have that stigma. We try to be there. We build homes. Lennar Chicago, I think we provided homes for 1,780 families. That's what we take pride in. And with the relationship that we have with Portage, it just makes it a win-win for everybody. I just want to thank you all for your time and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? If you'd come up, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Ayers. I actually live at 6360 East Main here in the apartments. But prior to that, I did live off of Croftwalk Avenue, which is in Arvilla Acres. Lennar Homes, I will give it up to you. You did save the trees to a point. So kudos on that. But I do have a few concerns. Sir, I apologize.
And you'll address the board, and we'll get the answers for you.
I apologize.
Okay. And did you fill in the paper with your name and address?
I can do that. I did not, but I will.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I do have a couple concerns regarding the development. It's been called a community that's going to wind up being an HOA property. A property that should be self-sustaining we'll take Lakes of the Four Seasons, they're a HOA property. They take care of everything. Now, I'm not proposing that this community is sufficient on fire and police services, but Four Seasons, they maintain their own roads, they maintain their own trash pickup, sewage, and everything else. Lennar Homes is proposing a development that provides HOA exclusivity with municipal benefits. The development is also going to put an additional strain on city resources that are already strained almost to a max right now. So I think at this point, we really need to consider, is a development this large really a benefit to the city, or is it just a benefit to the builder? I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? Either one. And when, go ahead, you're nearer, we'll let you go first. And if you'll,
Hi, I'm Sarah. I have lived in our Villa Acres for the last 15 years. I live at 5683 Crawford Avenue. Let me fill this out really quick so I don't lose my train of thought. So I'm not really here to ask questions today from the board. It's to give you a little insight of what I've been encountering the last 15 years. And we brought up in the last couple of sessions the drainage issue in this part of the city. I've been battling it for the last 15 years since I've moved in. I've been waking up at 3 in the morning every time there's a heavy rainfall because I have to drain my backyard. And okay, but I know Lennar did bring up that they do have a solution by having a detention pond, but with the way the land is, that may not necessarily help because I live just right across the way and I still have a flooding issue. And the first gentleman brought up, why wouldn't someone want this to be built? Well, me, because I've lived there for 15 years. I know how the land is. I know what it's doing and what I have to encounter every time there's a heavy rainfall. And so what I would like to bring up is that cities all over the nation are recognizing the demand and also the need for green space. And several of our neighbors like Valparaiso, Michigan City, they are investing in planting more native trees. They're trying to get the green space back. So this is a rhetorical question, but why isn't our city not marketing? Why aren't we marketing that? The green space that we have, promoting that, because a lot of people move here because of it. If they want to live in a more condensed neighborhood, we have other cities in Lake County, Illinois, that have those types of structures. And also, the other cities are paying to look like us. They are planting more trees to have these features. But Portage seems to be determined on building more commercial buildings, warehouses, and just bringing in more neighborhoods. And I do feel that Portage is going to be paying the price later on when we decide to play catch up to what everyone else has been doing the last 10 years. So I would say, I would ask you to make a choice of, do you want to make the easy choice like your predecessors have done before you, or do you want to stand on your own 2 feet and make the right choice here today? Thank you.
thank you. Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner?
Hi, my name's Micah Bennett. I'm on Appledown Avenue across the street, across Swanson from the proposed development. I recognize, sorry, I'm going to try to do this at the same time. I recognize that it is a complicated issue, and I'll say I was one of the tree supporters, and there are quite a few of us, and I really do appreciate what the developer has done modify the plans and preserve more of the woodland. And I realize it's more complicated than just, there's not an easy mechanism to preserve that 100% of the trees, and we could get a worse situation with another developer. That being said, I kind of wanted to, and I'll apologize because I had a statement written out and I had not seen the new plan, so some of it, I wanted to modify some of my points. But I guess I had three concerns moving forward, if this moves forward, and then a broader point similar to what Sarah said. First, I think there's a lot of interest from the community in preserving green space, and our petition had over 680 signatures. Most of those are from the immediate area, and so I think there's growing support and a lot of support for this woodland, but also for these issues in our city. Specific to the development, I think I would ask that the walking trails be light paths that preserve the character of the woodland. I think Mr. Leith, or I'm sorry, I forgot the other man. Okay. There was also someone else mentioned the natural assessment of the area, and it focused mostly on the trees, but another major component of woodlands are the wildflower and understory community, and that really needs to be evaluated in the springtime when those are showing up. They kind of go away after a number of weeks, and so my concern would be kind of maintaining that natural character of the woodland. In relation to that, I wonder if it would be possible to get an ecological evaluation so those paths and the specific areas that are preserved could be better understood. So I have an agreement from a local ecologist who's willing to do that pro bono, so the city and the developer could understand where are the most sensitive areas within what's being proposed to be preserved, and how can those be incorporated into the amenities. And then I would really ask for some agreement for public access so that all of the people of Portage could enjoy this place. It is a beautiful set of woods. It does have some invasive species issues, as were mentioned, but that could be remedied with a lot of volunteer work. And I know there's a new group here in Portage that looks at beautification and sustainability. So I hope they can get involved. And then just to kind of go back to these broader issues of green space, many people have talked about how this is an amazing example of a subdivision, and we don't see other subdivisions like this in the city, and it seems to be true. I wonder if we can have this be more of the norm by looking at our planning, our code in a more comprehensive way. I think it's been about 15 years since there's been a comprehensive planning effort, and I think those should be really major pieces to consider moving forward. So, why does it have to be that 75% rule of thumb? Can we do some things to make that more of the norm for our development? We need these spaces for our health and our well-being of all the people in the city, and I'd hate to see this continue where we're losing these kinds of spaces pretty much every month, every year for sure. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Is there anybody else to speak against the petitioner? Is there anybody here to speak against the petitioner? I close the public hearing. And Mr. Leith, would you like to go through the list and start answering all?
I will. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. I too want to bring up 2 points before I start answering specific questions. One, when in the mayor's comments, he talked about the schools. I went to the Indiana Department of Education over the last 10 years, and available on that webpage is the breakdown by grade level of the total enrollment of the school corporation. And over the last 10 years, it's decreased 17%. And as the mayor indicated, the way that the schools are funded is pardon the language, but butts in the chairs. There's a quota or a average daily student, and that's how they get funded. And property taxes are part of it, but that quotient, the butts in the chairs, are the true funding mechanism. Schools want more students. It's just a simple fact. And Portage schools are no exception. All of the school corporations in Porter County, I believe, are in the same boat. The second thing I want to point out, and Mr. Clevin said the same thing, how well we've worked with staff. We really appreciate that. There is a development review committee. I think some of you know that. They provided us comments to our PUD ordinance. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 passes of comments, corrections, and so forth to get this the way that the staff would like it with our corrections and tweaks and so forth. We worked well together. So again, appreciate that opportunity. Specifically with regard to some of the comments, not necessarily in order that they were received. This is a community. It's like any other community in Portage. It's not a gated community. In other words, our roads are not private roads. These will be public streets. And we will expect that the city will plow those streets and maintain those streets. And why is that any different? Because all 229 property owners in those nice homes are going to have an assessment, and they're going to pay property taxes. And part of those property taxes is going to go to the city of Portage, for which we expect to have our garbage collected and our streets plowed. So there's nothing unusual about that. Community isn't who plows your streets and who cuts your grass. It's what you have. It's the neighbors, it's the amenities. That's what makes a community. And we think that that's what's going to take place here if we're allowed to proceed. Yes, there's a homeowners association. They'll be maintaining those trails. The park is going to be private, I believe. As we move forward, that is not a absolute, but we believe that that'll probably be a private park. Certainly the detention pond will be maintained by the HOA. The grass in the common areas and the open space will be maintained and cut by that HOA. These 229 homeowners are going to pay not only their property taxes, but they're going to pay an assessment to the HOA for those services. There will be a strain on the city services, as I said. We expect certain things from our property taxes that these homeowners are going to pay. But if there were 313 lots, wouldn't there be more of a strain? The fact that we're developing the property creates that. How we develop it can affect, in different ways, the strain on services in the gentleman's language. So I think that having lesser homes on the same number of acres in this type of development is a very responsible way in which to develop the property. I'm going to jump over the drainage concerns. I do want Mr. Moore to come forward and help me answer that question. Was it Mr. Bennett? Sorry, you moved on me. You and I spoke on December 2nd, and I don't want this to be mean-spirited by any means, because I respect you, and we had a very nice conversation. You expressed opposition to the plan, but at the end, you said, I hope that this can be the norm for future development. And those things are inconsistent to me. So I think we are doing it right. And he said as much. He just doesn't he falls in the mayor's last pigeonhole. He doesn't want anything built. And I appreciate that. What we have now, it.
Okay, sir.
I'm sorry. I truly don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way I interpreted it was, this is a good thing. I wish we could do future developments like it. So I just wanted to point that out. The second person who spoke, Sarah, was concerned about drainage. And Mr. Moore joins me at the table now. He's a professional engineer with Manhard Consulting, a very well-known and well-respected regional firm for professional engineering services. Speak to the board about the drainage as you know it today.
Sure. Thank you, Todd. As Todd mentioned, my name is Mike Moore with Manhard Consulting. We're the civil engineer for the project. So just to clear up any issues regarding drainage that might be tributary to our Villa Acres or Brookside, on the screen, the site, 70 of the 80 acres drains from east to west, essentially top down towards the detention basin where we placed it. So there's really not much drainage that actually falls onto the site, the existing site, that is actually tributary to those neighborhoods. There is, however, about 10 acres in the southeast corner, kind of where the bump out circular drive is, that is actually tributary to a culvert that drains under Swanson Road towards our Villa Acres. Likeliness is, it's very flat in that area, and if that culvert is in any way blocked or anything like that, water probably does fill up and actually spill over. So what our proposed development would actually do is place storm sewer that would be tributary just to our detention basin, and we would actually take that 10 acres that currently might overflow into that neighborhood and actually pipe it to our detention basin. So not saying it will solve any issues that may occur to the east of our site, but it could actually help alleviate some of those problems that Swanson Road currently has, as it is pretty flat. But again, on our side of Swanson, the elevation changes about 20 feet from Swanson Road down to the west property line, so everything does ultimately drain from east to west, top down on the screen there.
It's not going to make anything worse in the Villa Acres.
No, certainly not. There would be storm sewer placed on the rear yards along Swanson Road to capture any drainage from those homes. That would all, again, be piped to our detention basin to the west.
Thank you. I think that we've answered, or I tried to answer the questions, and I know that you take notes, so if I missed anything, please let me know, and we'll try and do that. Thank you.
You did miss one. There is one item.
All right.
Just one item that was covered under the trees. We will, of course, to answer the gentleman's question, we will, of course, be submitting landscape plans that will have all of the trees identified and be part of a tree preservation and removal plan. So all those will be subject to, obviously, allowing anybody in the public to view those when we submit them. And to date, we've had many arborists out there for several days. We've had 2 ecologists out there looking at both the trees and the wetlands, which are, of course, on the ground. And we've studied this in detail, and, of course, we'll have detailed plans for you to review.
Madam President, if I may, just in conclusion, once again, I want to thank Mr. Leith and Luke. They do a great job.
If you could speak up just a little bit.
Sure. I just want to thank our staff and Mr. Leith. They did a great job. One thing I did hear when we first started this presentation and community was why a PUD. And I just want to, everything you've heard this evening, without a PUD, this wouldn't be possible. We could come in here and ask for several variances, probably superseding 7, maybe even touching 10 variances. And when you as a board grant those variances, now you're setting that precedent. So the next developer is going to come in and say, well, you gave it to Todd or you gave it to Lennar, now we want it too. Somebody comes in here on a PUD and they say, well, you gave Lennar this, you gave Lennar that. The board can turn around and say, okay, well, where are your amenities at? Where's your 30% open space? So that's what's nice about a PUD. And if we're fortunate enough to get this PUD approved, nothing can change. If we wanted to come in and change even the architecture is attached to the PUD. If we want to change anything, we are starting back at square one, as you know, where if you have variances on top of ordinances, the developer has a lot more freedom, and they can change their architecture, they can change other things. And the last statement I want to make about the HOA, Lennar Homes has been in business since 1952. They have not had one HOA fail as of yet. And we also govern the project from beginning to end. We make sure we place the board members on that HOA to fully take over the responsibility and that they're fully educated. And one other thing we like to do is take the burden off the municipality. So if for some reason somebody wanted to come into the municipality and ask for a variance, want their fence to encroach their front yard, they have to come to us first. So we stop all that before it comes and burdens your staff. And then as far as a financial burden, this project I'm thinking will be built out in about 4 years. Once it's built out, it's probably going to produce over $1 million a year in property taxes just on the 1% rule of the assessed value. This community won't really capture any of that other than snow plowing and your police and fire. And that's money that can be used to other communities or subdivisions within the communities that need more tender loving care that have been around for 40 or 50 years. Without a municipality that does not have the growth, then the existing taxpayers do see that burden with future assessments on their homes to cover that cost. Portage should be very proud. We're here not because of us, we're here because of you guys, what you've done in your municipality. You're the reason people want to live here. We're just captivating on that audience, but we also want to make sure that it's done right as well. So once again, thank you, everybody, and we look forward to your decision.
Thank you. The only other question that came up was about the new business was not a public hearing. And if you go to the second page, so it was done correctly. I will now open to questions from the board.
I do have a question, actually a couple observations. In your home products during your presentation, what I noticed was and if there are more, and we just haven't seen them, correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that your home products are all two-story homes. Is that correct? Or do you have single ranch homes, single level homes?
They just did not make it into the PowerPoint because they don't have the correct amount of brick on them. But yes, there will be ranches available as well, ranch plans.
And what would the square footage be of those ranches and the price for the models?
I do not have the price on hand, but I know you might be able to kind of ballpark it, or we can discuss after, but I know it's about 1,850 square foot.
And that's with a two-car garage, correct?
Correct.
I also heard that the HOA fees, would those have a built-in tier for any potential increases in the future? Is there going to be a cap on that at all for the residents?
Unfortunately, there's not a cap, but we do.
Actually, there is. Indiana has a homeowners association statute, and the homeowners have to be provided a proposed budget, and that budget can only go up year to year by a certain percentage unless the homeowners vote, a majority of the homeowners vote to have that happen.
Okay.
Correct. So
Good.
each year we submit the new budget.
That's 5%, so it can't go up 10% one year to the next unless the homeowners elect to do so.
Okay. That clears that up. Another one was just a conceptual observation. I see that, I'm assuming lot 150 through 142 are your smaller 50-foot, 50 by 120 lots, but yet it's on the south side with the remaining portions of your 63 by 126. Was it just, a decision to have those be the smaller lots for that strip? Or it just seems a little bit of oddness being on the south side versus the north side.
Want me to take this? Sure. Yeah. So obviously there's different targets or different buyer segments that we're targeting. Brookside, we have the Horizon models out there that we're going to be building on the south portion of this community. So the south portion of this community is basically a replacement for those home buyers that are coming into Brookside. It's a very strong market. Those are young families with young children. We also did Preston Trails, where we're capturing the active adult. Those are all maintenance-free. And then this is a new product that we are introducing to Portage, which is our core. And the reason why we bisected the property the way we did was basically just trying to transition into what we see the future growth to the north of us is going to be commercial. So that's the reason why we put the smaller homes to the north. And then also we have the higher density community to the west. So we just felt that it transitioned well. As you go south, you get more of that open feel. So we wanted the larger home sites on the south end versus the north.
But there wouldn't be any objection to having lots 150 and 142 be more aesthetically to coincide with what lots 43 and the remaining would be?
150 to 142.
It's on the middle road on the right side.
You're asking, could we switch those over to the larger home sites?
Potentially.
I don't think there would be an objection. We'd have to go back and visit the financials. What do we have there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can just off the cuff say no, there would be no objection to that. Obviously, we're going to have higher premiums on those home sites that back up to that preserved wooded area. I think that we could probably make that work.
And that's where my point was going to lead into next, that because they are part of that wooded area, that those individual residents who might be trying to grasp that more nature feel would have the woods as their backyard.
Yeah, I think, like I said, off the cuff, I can agree to do that. As long as I could revisit 40 through 43 and maybe make up for some of that.
So you're saying to make 40 through 43 smaller?
Yeah, I would just swap them out, correct. Mm-hmm.
That would put smaller and bigger and bigger and smaller. You know, like, if you think about it, like right here, this is like a small home section. And then it's broken up by a park with the trees. And then you come down and you take a lot. And now you're entering into a home phase. That's also like the core.
Yeah.
143 or 150.
Or we could switch over to the other to the north.
And in theory, if lots 150 through 142 are a little bit bigger, that would decrease potentially. Maybe it decreases it by 1 or 2 homes. That way it's no, we're not looking at 229, we're looking at 227. My magic number, I guess, is like 225. It just seems cool.
You have my
So-
commitment. We could do that. We'll make it work. Rich is probably back there screaming at me. We can make that work, can't we, Rich? Absolutely. Yeah, well, we'll make it work. It's actually, it makes a lot of sense what you're pointing out. I completely understand the thought process there, and I think that those homes should probably be larger to back up to those woods.
And then my other observation, and I don't know if this is the Planning Commission side or on the city side, but we do have the bike trails coming through as it's being proposed in the regional or the connection of the bike trails. So just forward thinking, if this is an HOA community, it's supposed to be a private park, but the bike trails are connecting to other public areas, and somebody riding the bike trails with their family continue to move on into this community space and decide to let their kids play as they take a break off their bike, how is that going to be a conflict to the residents within this community space?
It's a very good question. So the issue on the table right now that we're discussing is private versus public. First, let's discuss the public bike path. I believe your ordinance is requiring us to put in a public walking bike path along the north side of County Road 700, and it also traverses north along Swanson, and it comes back into our community. The other amenity here that is not fully decided upon as far as public or private is the fitness court. The reason the fitness court is shown and being proposed in this community is just from a conversation the mayor and I had in his office when he showed excitement of the first fitness court being built in the city of Portage. And we're always looking for new amenities, and I can't wait till I bring in a 400 or 500 unit community to Portage, where we can actually build one of our well-known pool houses and our large pools. So those are always something I take a lot of pride in. But you have to be touching 400 units to make that pencil financially. But with this fitness court, I would imagine that the city would want that to be public. So we are open for discussions on how we can make that public, whether we just make a cash contribution to the city, and then the city can come and build that, and then that portion around Home Site 44 and that fitness park, that would be city land, so that would be a public amenity that people can come to and use. And then if we also need to provide some sort of public access via one of these walking paths, absolutely, we'll make that work as well. To make it all public, that's something we can discuss. If the city would want to take on ownership of all those woods, one good thing is you'll definitely be guaranteed that they're never touched or preserved. And then also, if you wanted the park to be public, that's something that I'm going to get pushed back from a corporate level, because corporate looks at it, why are we inviting people into our community when we own it, we pay for it? But it's not something that I can't overcome. So if the temperature of the municipality is they want ownership, they want that to be completely public, I think it's something that could be discussed. If it pencils out, I don't know if it needs to be determined at this level. This is a rezone. That would probably come more at the council level or even at the final plat. We could probably start with those discussions at staff, present numbers, maintenance, that kind of stuff. Let's figure out what that's going to cost to maintain. Let's figure out exactly what the city wants. But if right now you're just asking, can the public utilize this, I can commit to the fitness court would definitely be a public amenity, and that walking path that goes along 700 up Swanson and back over to that fitness court will also be public. Now, to your earlier point, are we going to go out there and police that and kick somebody off? I've yet to ever even seen that happen in one of our communities. If there's vandalism or there's crime of some sort, then yes, we would play that card and say, hey, this is private, not public. But if somebody out there is truly respecting it, they're bringing their grandchild across to go play on the park, I don't see a Lennar associate out there kicking anybody out. It comes down to responsibility and who's going to own it and who's going to maintain it are the true trigger items there.
Okay, before you move forward, Mayor Bonta, do you want to explain about?
Yeah, just putting on my actual mayor hat, if you will, just to that, because I think I agree with everything. Yeah, so I mean, just like nothing's off the table for them, there's nothing off the table from the city side. That said, you want to think about what is in the best interest of the city to maintain versus what's in the best interest of a friendly HOA developer to maintain. So the fitness court thing is definitely a conversation that happened because we were talking about the other Lennar neighborhood, happens to be across the street from where we put in a fitness court. And so I think it just became a very exciting amenity that we were interested in. When it comes to things not being, off the table, the idea of that becoming a city park or a piece of it being a city park is the part that makes the most sense to me if we're going to go that direction, with discussion, especially given that, as noted, these are city roads. I mean, the thing about a fitness court is that ideally you want it to be close enough that people are walking or jogging there. Not to say you can't take your car and park on the side of the road and use it, but the goal is to have them in enough areas that people are actually physically going there, working out. From a maintenance side, what's nice about a fitness court is it's very low maintenance, and even the concept of having another neighborhood park there is not something that's out of the ordinary or terribly scary for us. Now, if you're talking about something like a trail, especially the kind of trail like what this is designed to be through the woods, that would be where I would lean more towards having a private entity maintain the trail rather than try to put that on the city for so many reasons. But as noted, quite frankly, the people who live in this neighborhood, they don't wear special clothing or special hats. If you happen to live in our villa, I don't know if they're allowed to say this, but I'm going to say this. If you happen to live in our villa acres and you cross the street, you use the fitness court, and then you do a light jog, through the trail, I mean, you could be a friend of somebody staying overnight. You could be, like you say, someone could be visiting their grandmother. If the Portage Police, we have a lot of things going on. We're not going to respond to someone's concern that a non-resident is walking through a trail. That is strictly, from our perspective, a vandalism or a threat sort of situation. And I think that that's pretty comparable everywhere. So the relationship of ownership between trail versus park, that's certainly something that we can discuss. I don't think that that has to be hammered out here, in part because it would be a lot to hammer out, and I would prefer that we have the park department involved, not just the plan commission, especially because cost-wise, it might be better maintained by an HOA, than by the parks. It's not an attack on our parks. They're doing a wonderful job, and they get better every day, but that would be a very big commitment, maintaining this kind of trail, for the neighborhood. I hope I answered that okay.
They will be here again as time goes on. We'll look at covenants, we'll look at site plans. This is just more of a concept right now. So we could talk about all that down the road.
This is the preliminary development plan. The final development plan is where Manhart Consulting comes, and it looks not like this. It looks like a subdivision plat, because that's essentially what it is.
And my final observation, and this might be in the second planning stage then, is, again, forward-thinking with trails and fitness and crossing the street and that sort of thing, that at least on the north side, from where Buttercup Avenue is to the end of the development, is there any intention of putting a sidewalk there on Swanson Road?
Rich, we don't show a sidewalk all the way up Swanson, correct? Yeah. Are there currently? Yeah, I think when we discussed that, it was more of a safety issue. I don't believe there's sidewalks on Swanson. We do show the bike path, which, because we don't have home sites right up against Swanson in the wooded area, we do show that bike path coming up Swanson, traversing through our community, in which you could then get on the public sidewalk system and just go up the first north-south road, would dead end around home site 20, and then you can go back east and then cross Swanson again into Kingston Avenue. That's the way it's currently proposed, but if the request of the city is to have sidewalks along Swanson, I don't see why we couldn't make that happen. I mean, we might have to eliminate the bike trail bisecting the wooded area and just bring everybody over to the park via the public road system, sidewalks. It's 6 one-way, half dozen another if we just swap those two bike trails out and install sidewalk along Swanson. But I would just defer to the staff and your board. If that's a request that you're asking, we would definitely entertain that.
Yeah, that's going to be, this is more of a concept plan as far as the plan development and the change of zoning. So we'll be able to address all of that as we move forward. So.
Okay, and again, it's just a matter of the observation here while
Yeah,
things
sure.
are fresh on my mind.
You'll see it as it gets more developed and more engineered.
Yeah, so when the engineering's back in front of you for primary plat approval, we can make a note to discuss that in staff, and if that's something that's a request of the city, by all means, we'll entertain that. We also did receive a phone call from a gentleman that was unable to make the citizens meeting. He resides at the southeast corner of our community, which would be the northeast corner of Swanson and County Road 700, where he was just concerned about safety, and we're going to be studying that intersection as well. There's some roadway improvements that need to take place again, that's all engineering that'll come during the preliminary plat.
For the record, he wanted a roundabout.
There goes the fitness court. He even asked for some landscaping or some sort of, I guess there's some accidents that he's concerned about, vehicles that slide off the road and go into his yard, and we made a verbal commitment to him that we would study that intersection, and he asked for some sort of a barricade or a guardrail, and I suggested maybe we can even do it out of landscaping and put some large boulders there for him. Again, it comes back to my opening comments. We just want to be a good neighbor and make it a win-win for everybody. So that's one thing we're going to look at during the engineering. I think we might even be reaching out to a traffic study just to really satisfy him and the city as a whole to see what's really going to take place at that intersection. But again, if the city would like to see sidewalks along Swanson Road, it's not a deal breaker.
Again, just forward thinking that if the remaining acreage on the north end is potentially up for development as commercial, that if any of the residents within this community or across the street need to safely walk down Swanson to access that area in the future, that it's already in place.
Questions from the board? If there's no further questions, may I have a motion?
So we're going to want to probably do 3 motions. Yeah, so we'll start with Z-05-24, either a favorable or unfavorable recommendation to City Council, and then move on to 6, and then PDO 224.
Okay, so that would be a favorable recommendation for zoning from R2 to R3.
Correct, with the first petition. yes.
Correct. May I have a motion for the first petition?
I'll make a motion for the first petition to send a favorable recommendation to the city council to approve the city zoning of Z0524 from R2 to R3.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Bren Wright,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
Deb Ekdahl,
Yes.
Denise Little,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Alonso Garcia.
Yes.
May I have a motion for 06-24?
I'll make a motion to send a favorable recommendation to the city council to approve the change of zoning of Z0624 from R3 to PDR3. Is that right?
Second.
And we have a second. Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Bren Wright,
Yay.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
Deb Ekdahl,
Yes.
Denise Little,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Alonso Garcia.
Yes.
May I have a motion for PD 02-24?
I'll make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the city's council to approve the preliminary plan development.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cherry, could you call roll?
Bren Wright,
Yes.
Sam LaBoy,
Yes.
Deb Ekdahl,
Yes.
Denise Little,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez,
Yes.
Alonso Garcia.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you. We look
We'll
forward to
see
seeing
you
you hopefully
again.
next month. Or the month after.
Any old business to come before the board? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye.